and it is going to be a mistake. And then when the mayor, who's Tom Barrett, leaves office, nobody is going to hold him accountable because he'll be gone. The next mayor will be the one who has to clean up the mess if he isn't a supporter of the project. And Bob Donovan, who has been one of the most outspoken critics against this, is going to be running for mayor. And he might win based on this issue alone, even though it shouldn't be an issue. He's also really good on the crime issue, which the mayor doesn't take seriously. His answer to our crime problems is gun control, like most Democrat mayors in the country.
Of course.
Or stop and frisk.
Yeah. Our mayor wouldn't. We don't do stop and frisk here. Unless you're a legal gun owner in the city, then the police department has a policy. They throw you on the ground and take your gun and ask questions later.
Well,
and have to have a judge to get it back.
Yeah, they actually had to issue a warrant to get a gun legally used in a self-defense case back from the police department. And if you know David Clark, the Milwaukee County Sheriff, who has been on the national stage for some prominent stories, he would have relished every second of going in and serving that warrant against the police chief to return that weapon, because even though he runs as a Democrat, David Clark is one of the most conservative men and principled men that I know, and I'm glad that he is our sheriff because I trust him. Brian in the chat room asked if unions were for it, and I didn't get to respond to his comment. The police and fire unions have come out against it. They understand that it's a waste of time. It's going to take money from them. It's going to have to take money from law enforcement. It's going to have to take money from our schools because this is going to cost. They said right now it's going to cost $124 million and may go up to $1 billion. I'm going to tell you right now that if it just stays at that $124 million projected figure, or the size projected for $124 million, it will easily be over $200 million before they even consider the expansion. And if they try to expand it, we're probably looking at 1.5, maybe even $2 billion to expand this.
They could expand the bus system for a lot less.
Oh yeah, and more efficiently. Go ahead, Dave.
Another thing I was going to mention, because full disclosure, I don't drive. I've taken public transportation all my life. I rely on it. This would not benefit me, and it wouldn't go to this part of town. It never would reach this part of town on the southwest side. And even if it did, it'd be difficult getting around over here. You mentioned about where cities were unsuccessful. The one city where Metrolink or light rail was successful that I've ridden, St. Louis, used existing railway or right-of-way, which we could have done with the old, I think it was a beer line you're talking about.
Yeah.
With the, there's alternatives, but the mayor's fixed on this, and he's determined to get it in before he gets booted out of office.
And before anybody can do things like put it to a binding referendum where the people of the city, and I believe a majority of the people of the city oppose it, would vote against it and stop this project in its tracks. And I think they know that because that's why they're trying to rush this through, because he signed the legislation yesterday. That's how big of a rush he's in to get this project going, because what they'll do is they'll start breaking ground and say, well, we've spent $10 million on XYZ, we can't stop this project now. To which I say, yes, you can, because I'd rather waste the $10 million than be on the hook for an additional $124 million, because it's going to damage the city of Milwaukee. And the thing that gets me is if Scott Walker goes on to higher office, or if he doesn't and ends up not being our governor and we get back into Democrat control, Milwaukee will end up like Detroit, where the city's employees will lose their pensions or a significant portion of their pensions, where the city will be in disarray and will lose citizens and become basically a ghost town because nobody wants to pay high taxes in a crime-ridden area for the services that they're not going to be getting, because the priorities of this government and spending are so out of whack that it actually makes my head hurt.
There was a revolt, believe it or not, in San Antonio over a planned streetcar, with a lot of people signing petitions to get it on as a referendum on the ballot. And what ended up happening was you had the Regional Transportation Authority there, as well as the local governments, finally say, you know something, and these are Democrat-run governments, finally say, okay, we're going to back away from this. So if the people speak up and there's a danger that the elected officials could end up losing their job, you could see them backtrack on it if enough people speak up.
I don't think Barrett has anything to lose, though.
Barrett doesn't, but I think the common council members do, and I think those are the ones you have to go after. And I think, if I recall correctly, the other outspoken council member opposed to this is Davis, who will also probably run for mayor, and he will probably run also on the platform of stopping the streetcar because it's not helping his constituents. And I mentioned this before, but we had the Dontre Hamilton shooting here, which caused a lot of protests and a lot of strife with the government. And obviously they have a different political leaning than I do. But even they are aligned with Bob Donovan, who is probably the most conservative and slightly kooky member of the Milwaukee Common Council, where they're all on the same side on this issue. He has managed to unite two completely polar opposite factions in opposition to this stupid mistake that is the streetcar.
Well, feudalism's a big thing, and you never know who you're going to team up with. You never know what's going to happen. One of the things that I thought was interesting was there are sometimes you see people end up being in, you'll see people team up, like, say, Rand Paul and Cory Booker team up to be involved with, trying to do sentence reform. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that occasionally happens.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. There are so many people who are saying this is a bad idea, and he's just fixated, he being the mayor, is fixated on this train. And these common council members who all think, for whatever reason, this project that has failed in every other city is going to miraculously work in Milwaukee, and it's not. And it's upsetting to me as a citizen, and it's upsetting to me as a taxpayer, and it's upsetting to me as somebody who loves this city. And Amanda mentioned the chat room, Milwaukee looks absolutely beautiful. It is. I mean, like most urban areas, it has its rough spots. But there are also some absolutely beautiful parts to this city. I used to work in conferences where we would get people who came to the city from around the country and around the world. And one of the biggest comments that they ever said was, well, two, actually. People were very nice and very friendly, and the city was remarkably clean. And it is. It is. It is a wonderful city. And if you are a listener and you ever come, hit me up on Twitter, and I will gladly show you around, because I do, weather aside, and I hate the winter, I do love the city that I live in. And I think it's got a great cultural scene, a great nightlife, a great rich history, and just some beautiful, beautiful places to go and visit and to see. And it's going to be completely ruined by the government.
You should come here in October when the colors change. We've been called a city in a forest. We have as many trees in a city as an average forest does. Mm-hmm. It's like you look in a view from the bluffs, you see nothing but a canopy of trees.
Yeah, if you come in September, especially, they do this great thing called Doors Open Milwaukee, where you can go into buildings that you normally couldn't get to other times of the years, and they open up. It used to be the it's the U.S. Bank building now, but it used to be the First Wisconsin building, and it's on the lakefront, and it is a tall white building, and if you stand on top of there, you can see the entire city, and it is a breathtaking view. We have that beautiful art museum by the lake, with the Calatrava is the art museum, and it was designed by Santiago Calatrava, and it's got quote unquote wings. So the roof of the roof of the building opens up, and I'm making the hand gesture in the video so Amanda can see, but it looks like a bird flying, and then when the wings are closed, it kind of looks like a ship sailing out over the lake, and it's beautiful. We have such a great city, and the priorities are so out of whack that it breaks my heart. It really, really does break my heart. And I honestly don't know if there is anything that the state can do to stop this. Because someone else said in the chat room, move because it's going to go to the county, and yeah, it will. And it'll go to the state and eventually the feds for more money. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And part of the reason why Tom Barrett, when he ran for governor twice, lost so bad is because he didn't play well out of state. Because out of state, people see Milwaukee as a violent, crime-ridden place that sucks up a lot of the state's tax money. And it does get a lot of money. It's the largest urban area in the state. It does draw in a lot of tax money, and people who are outstate don't like that. And this is only going to make it worse. Mm-hmm.
You mean out of city?
Out of city, I'm sorry, yeah. But, we're talking people up in Fond du Lac and Eau Claire and Green Bay and Door County and Superior. They see Milwaukee as sort of this black hole where their money goes to die and where we always get stuff from the state. And it's very, very frustrating. And I wouldn't be surprised if something came down from Madison trying to put the kibosh on this, because one of the first things Walker did when he took office was he killed a high-speed rail line plan from Milwaukee to Madison because it was going to be the exact same thing. Billions and billions of dollars premised on some free, quote-unquote, federal money that was going to put the state on the hook for millions and millions and millions of dollars down the road. And
yeah, they killed the 3C rail here, which was supposed to go from Cincinnati to Columbus to Cleveland. The money, though, was actually allocated from the feds, and it wasn't necessarily a bad idea because it would have been self-sustaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
it wasn't the same position that you guys were in. It became so political that they didn't look at it from a business perspective. And from a business perspective, if they would have helped privatize it, it could have been a very, very successful rail line. But unfortunately,
and I wouldn't mind
California got our money. Woo! Yay!
I wouldn't mind a high-speed network from Chicago, through Milwaukee to the Twin Cities. That actually makes some sense. And if you want to improve, rail transportation, it would take a little money, and it would actually be, at least from Milwaukee to Chicago, be very practical. But the way they were doing it did not make sense. And now this streetcar,
which is going to go in a anywhere from 1.5 to 2.1 mile loop, even initially, and then there are already the ink hasn't even dried on the legislation, and they want to expand it more to other areas of the city. We don't know how it's going to function when it's cold or when we have a foot of snow like we had a couple of weekends ago. We don't know if the tracks will even work or if the tracks will get damaged by the plows or the salt or any of that sort of stuff.
Or just by the extremes in weather we have.
Or by the extremes in weather we have, because it can get very hot and humid here in the summer. I mean, and granted, it's downtown where it tends to be a little bit cooler by the lake in the summer and warmer in the winter, but not enough to negate those temperature extremes that we sometimes get. So there has to be a way, and right now it's looking kind of grim, but I'm hoping that they will get enough signatures, and even if the city attorney or whoever has to validate them says we don't have enough, I expect it to go to court, and I expect this to be dragged out. And I don't think that this is over yet. I think we can still beat this, and I think we can still stop this. And I still think that every common council member that voted for this needs to be kicked out of office. And there's just no defense of what they've done and what they're trying to do to this city. There isn't. And I don't believe that there has been a statement from the governor, but I'm sure his people are aware of this. And I'm sure that if they can find a way to do something, I wouldn't be surprised if they do, just to stop this at the state level, because it is going to end up taking money away from the state eventually. And they can massage the numbers here in the city all they want to say that it'll be financed and self-sustaining, but it's not going to be, because it's not going to have the ridership it needs. The TIF district is based on the concept that there will be businesses along this route that will pay into the tax fund to support it. If those businesses go away, and we are not a business-friendly city, and that we could spend an hour talking about how business unfriendly we are. If those businesses go away, they don't have that tax money. Mm-hmm. They are going to have to do what I said at the beginning. They are going to come to first the taxpayers of the city, and our taxes are going to go up. And I wouldn't be surprised if property taxes like mine ended up doubling to cover this, because we'll still need money for schools and law enforcement and infrastructure. And then they'll go to the county, and then they'll go to the state, and then they'll go to the feds. All because the mayor wants this little train that he can play with. And I think we should take up a GoFundMe account and buy him a really, really nice model train set that he can keep in his basement so he can have what makes him happy and not screw us over.
But you could even give a nice little model railroad in Washington Park. They could ride around and sit on it. And
like they have at the Domes. Yes, the Domes has it's mini, but it's big enough that small children and their parents, if needs be, can ride